North Korea. Even the name evokes a curiosity mixed with chills. The images that come to mind: strictly disciplined military parades, a cold and distant leader, and of course, an enigmatic regime. But what really happens behind these tightly woven borders? What truths does North Korea, one of the world's most isolated and mysterious countries, hide behind closed doors? Today, we have a unique opportunity to lift this veil of secrecy. A North Korean defector is among us to bravely share what it's like to live under one of the world's most oppressive regimes. What they reveal may overturn all your thoughts about North Korea. If you're ready to hear the secrets it holds, let's begin. The dangerous journey of North Korean defectors. Since the Korean War split the peninsula in the 1950s, over 30,000 North Koreans have embarked on a deadly journey to start a new life in South Korea. This journey requires first crossing the tightly guarded border into China, then reaching a third country that allows them to get to South Korea. Every step is filled with risks. The danger of being caught is ever present. Although the number of defectors peaked at 3,000 in 2009, escapes have decreased with Kim Jong-un's rise to power and tightened border controls. So, what drives these people to undertake such a perilous journey? Poverty? Certainly, the harsh living conditions in North Korea are a significant reason for escape, but the main driving force is the suffocating pressure of the totalitarian regime. North Korean defectors tell chilling stories of limited freedoms, constant propaganda, and the fear they feel every moment. Their accounts paint a dark portrait of a country where basic human rights are disregarded. In hopes of escaping oppression, those who embark on this terrifying journey walk through dense forests, cross rivers under the cover of night, and live with the constant fear of being caught. The price of capture is heavy: imprisonment, torture, even death. And there's the emotional burden. Many defectors have to leave their loved ones behind, living without knowing if they'll ever see them again, constantly thinking about their family's fate. This uncertainty opens deep wounds in their hearts. The Pleasure Squad. In 2010, a brave woman named Mi Hyang escaped from North Korea and sought refuge in South Korea. Her reason for escaping was the fear of persecution after her family was accused of treason, a betrayal they couldn't understand. But this wasn't the only pain she had to endure. She revealed that she was forcibly taken into a unit known as the Pleasure Squad for 2 horrific years. What exactly is this Pleasure Squad, and what kinds of horrors does it contain? The Pleasure Squad, or Kipumjo, emerged during the era of North Korea's founder, Kim Il-sung. Even after his death, Kim Il-sung was revered as the nation's leader, and in the late 1970s, he began gathering young girls from across the country for special tasks. Most of these girls were only 13 or 14 years old, and some were recommended for this disturbing service by their own schools. Kim Il-sung particularly preferred young girls because he believed that being close to them would give him life force. The girls' families were told that their daughters were selected to serve Kim Il-sung and that they couldn't object. The selected girls were forced to live in the mansions of powerful people and do whatever was asked of them. These girls were divided into different groups. One group dealt with performing arts, while another specialized in therapeutic practices like massage. But there was a darker side, the Manjokjo. The mission of this group was to provide personal services to Kim Il-sung. After Kim Il-sung's death, his son, Kim Jong-il, continued the Pleasure Squad tradition. Kim Jong-il also had his own companions, and according to rumors, others in the Kim family participated in the exploitation of these girls. Kenji Fujimoto, a former sushi chef who worked for the Kim family, claimed that Kim Jong-il's brother, Jang Song-tak, organized auditions for the girls. In these auditions, girls were asked to sing, dance, and even perform certain poses. According to Fujimoto, to enter the auditions, the girls first had to get close to Jang Song-tak. The story of Jang Song-tak ended tragically. Seen as a threat by his nephew Kim Jong-un, Jang Song-tak was killed by a firing squad, and his body was burned with flamethrowers. Mi Hyang's experience in North Korea's Pleasure Squad. Very little information about the operations of the Pleasure Squad reaches outside North Korea, and what does emerge is quite chilling. Let's now take a closer look at what Mi Hae-young recounted. Mi Hae-young describes how she was taken into the pleasure squad when she was just a 15-year-old student. She vividly remembers the selection process, where female students were carefully examined and candidates like herself were identified. These few selected individuals underwent comprehensive evaluations where their family backgrounds, academic records, and physical characteristics were meticulously examined. Height played an interesting role in the selection. Due to Kim Jong-il's stature, those exceeding 165 centimeters were eliminated. Candidates had to have flawless skin, a soft and feminine voice, and undergo detailed medical evaluations. Out of nationwide applications, only 30 to 40 students were selected each year. 15 boys were also included to serve Kim Jong-il as farm workers or house helpers. The selected ones underwent 6 months of intensive training and were finally given a last interview with Kim Jong-il. Those who passed his approval were given the opportunity to serve until the age of 25. Upon reaching 25, they were forced to retire from their duties. Mi Hae-young recalls a strange ritual where she had to take an oath of allegiance with blood taken from her finger before meeting Kim Jong-il. She had to swear with blood drawn from her finger. Imagine that. Those who entered Kim Jong-il's service lived lives surrounded by strict rules. They were forbidden from communicating with their families during their 10 years of service. This further isolated them within the boundaries of their duties. Unmasking the elite lifestyle of North Korea. Lee Il-nam, the nephew of North Korea's founding leader Kim Il-sung, sheds light on the secret world of the pleasure squad in his memoir published in exile. Lee's accounts paint a vivid picture of extravagant and hedonistic parties held at Kim Il-sung's residence in Pyongyang. These parties were scenes where limitless alcohol was consumed and actions that reached more extreme points as the night progressed. Lee describes a typical party as being like a whirlwind. Guests enjoyed an endless feast, laughter and music filled the air, people danced and chatted freely. But there was a dark side to these festivities. As the night progressed and boundaries were lifted, games began, particularly a crude game where the loser faced a humiliating punishment. Lee explains that the loser was forced to remove their clothes piece by piece, regardless of their gender. This punishment, as Lee noted, applied to everyone. Men and women, regardless of their status, had to submit to this humiliating penalty. Lee writes about another even more astonishing game, a personal hair-shaving challenge. In this game, participants gambled with their most cherished possession, their hair, under the influence of alcohol. For men, losing meant having their heads shaved completely. For women, the stakes were higher. Lee claims that women who lost this game would have their privacy violated in a humiliating way. This was an open violation of dignity and a form of humiliation that's hard to comprehend. Lee Il-nam was killed in 1995. Breaking free from the supreme leader. Mi Hae-young's story was unlike anything heard before. It wasn't just about serving a dictator. It was also a glimpse into the strange and personal life of a man hidden in secrecy. We learned that North Korea's former leader Kim Jong-il wasn't just a ruthless tyrant. According to Mi Hae-young, he had a surprisingly emotional side and even shed tears after a few drinks. But that wasn't all. Mi Hae-young also revealed Kim Jong-il's peculiar tastes. His favorite food was something most of us couldn't even imagine, a dish that included the reproductive organs of sharks. His living conditions were as extravagant as his tastes. Apparently, he wasn't content with just one palace. Mi Hae-young described a network of private residences scattered around the capital. Some of these residences had incredible amenities. For example, a personal underground swimming pool 50 meters long. This was a secret world where the leader could indulge in his hobbies away from the public eye, a life of wealthy isolation. However, what Mi Hae-young recounted also reveals the contradictions in Kim Jong-il's personality. He could be surprisingly emotional and even be cared for by female attendants. Yet, he was also known to have a fiery temper. As mentioned earlier, the time Mi Hae-young spent with Kim Jong-il suddenly changed when her family was accused of treason in North Korea, the most unimaginable crime. The penalty for this was execution. However, Kim Jong-il intervened and ordered that Mi Hae-young be pardoned, We can only guess the confusion and fear Mi Hyeyoung must have felt during this time. One moment in the service of the leader, the next her family facing death, and then suddenly they are pardoned. But why? Despite her close relationship with the former leader, Mi Hyeyoung insists that the bond between them was never romantic. Mi Hyeyoung's escape occurred shortly after this incident. Perhaps the threat to her family was the last straw, or maybe she couldn't bear the thought of continuing her service under such conditions. The last detail Mi Hyeyoung revealed was the origin of her name. Apparently, the leader considered her real name too provincial and gave her the name Mi Hyeyoung. This small fact alone says a lot about the absolute control exercised by Kim Jong-il and his successor. They could control not just people's lives, but even their identities. From dissolution to renewal. The Pleasure Squad came to an end with Kim Jong-il's death in 2011, and a new era began under the leadership of his son Kim Jong-un. However, Kim Jong-un did not trust his father's close circle, especially the Ri Won-chit, to the women of the Pleasure Squad who had knowledge about his father's regime. Fearing that these women might reveal secrets, Kim Jong-un took action to silence them. Kim Jong-un ordered the women of the Pleasure Squad to return to their hometowns by paying them large sums of money and giving them household appliances as gifts. It's said that each woman was paid around $4,000, a fortune by North Korean standards. The purpose of this secret operation was to keep the women silent and prevent them from talking about Kim Jong-il and his regime. For 4 years, the halls of the Pleasure Squad remained empty. However, in 2015, rumors began to spread in South Korea that Kim Jong-un was secretly working to revive the Pleasure Squad, this time with a new group carefully selected for his own pleasure. This marked the rebirth of this secret institution, showing the enduring impact of power and desire in North Korea's isolated corridors. A daring escape. Moving away from the chilling story of Mi Hyeyoung and the Pleasure Squad, let's now focus on another defector's harrowing escape and revelations, a man known simply as Mr. Kim. To protect his family's safety both in his new home in Seoul and in North Korea, Mr. Kim keeps his real name hidden. Mr. Kim's escape from North Korea reads like something out of a thriller. Unlike many defectors who attempt to escape via the Chinese border, Mr. Kim decided to flee by sea, taking his family with him. Alongside him were his pregnant wife, his elderly mother, his brother's family, and even his deceased father's ashes. The year was 2023. North Korea had closed its borders due to COVID, severing its ties with the outside world. This had reduced the number of people attempting to escape the country. But Mr. Kim was undeterred. On the night they set sail, the weather conditions were terrible. Strong winds from the south churned the sea. But Mr. Kim hoped that these bad weather conditions would push back the patrolling North Korean boats, giving them a chance to escape. This escape was not a decision made on a whim. Mr. Kim had lived with the longing for freedom for years and had meticulously planned every detail for months. The success of the escape depended on these plans. The most heartbreaking part involved Mr. Kim's brother's children. After putting the children to sleep with sleeping pills, Mr. Kim and his brother carried them through a dangerous minefield. Each step was a silent prayer. Each breath was held tightly. Moving in the dark, they avoided the guard's searchlights. Reaching the predetermined spot on the shore was just the first step. Now, they had to board the boat without attracting attention. The children were hidden in old grain sacks and carried onto the vessel. The family boarded the boat with hearts pounding. The men were prepared for a possible confrontation. The women carried eggshells filled with a mixture of chili powder and black sand. This mixture was designed to be thrown into the faces of any pursuing Coast Guard officers. Fortunately, this dangerous journey ended successfully. Mr. Kim and his family reached South Korea. He later shared shocking information about the life he left behind: hunger, oppression, and the longing for freedom. All these revelations are just the tip of the iceberg. There's more, which we will share with you in our new video. See you soon.